Good afternoon, class, and welcome back to class. As today we'll be looking into a very important topic in economics. Today we'll be looking into what we refer to as elasticity of demand. Elasticity of demand. And we all know the market is in two phases, right? We have the demand side and we have the supply side. Last week we talked about definition and types and the determinant. And today we'll be looking at elasticity. That is how demand responds to changes in price and other factors. So we'll be looking at the elasticity of demand and supply as well. So let's take elasticity of demand. Now, looking at the elasticity of demand, the word elasticity simply means the degree of stretch. So when we now take a look at elasticity of demand, meaning the degree of stretch of what? Of demand itself. So when we are referring to the elasticity, it's just a degree of responsiveness to how demand reacts to changes in price. Not only price, but to changes in other factors, like changes in price, like changes in income, and change with respect to the prices of other commodities. So in this definition, actually, it lies three types of elasticity. So let's put the definition down and view the types of elasticities we have for demand. So elasticity of demand can be defined as the degree of responsiveness to how demand reacts to changes in price, comma, now, so this is just the degree of responsiveness to how demand reacts to changes in price, changes in income, and the prices of other commodities. Now, look at this definition. The first thing here is the price. The second determinant is the income. And thirdly, price of other commodities. Now, inside this definition, it is giving us three types of elasticity of demand. So what are the three types? We'll be having price elasticity for number one. Number two will be income elasticity. Then number three, since we are comparing other commodity, we refer to it as cross elasticity. So let's put that down. Types. Income elasticity. Now, so number one, we have the price elasticity. Number two, we have the income elasticity. And number three, we have the cross elasticity. Now, looking at price, since this definition is a generalized definition. Now, this definition is telling us that the degree of responsiveness to how demand reacts to changes in price, the income, and the change in the price of other commodities. So when we talk of the price, we are only referring to how demand is what is changing, increasing or decreasing with respect to the price change. That's all. Then when we take a look at the income, it is only recording or is only calculating the degree at which your demand is changing towards to changes in income. Then if you take a look at the price, it is just comparing two things together. Okay, that is, it spells out mostly complement goods or substitute goods or even goods that are even non-related at all. So what this is just telling us is that it is comparing two commodities and their respective prices together. So it's just telling us the quantity demanded of a particular product with respect to the price of another product. So that is just the definition for 1, 2, and 3. And we can put that down for the price elasticity. Let's take that one first. So the definition is going with this way, but the only determinant there is the price. So let's put that down. Can be defined as the degree of responsiveness to how demand reacts to changes in price. So we can see that to changes in price alone. Now, it has a formula. It has a formula because anytime we talk of elasticity, we are trying to record or we are trying to calculate the change of a particular consumer. Now, the formula is percentage change. Now, we all know what this is, percentage. So we can say percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. Percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. Now, looking at this, I can actually have a way of writing this in a very, very short way. Now, since you all know what percentage is, we'll write that. Change can be represented by a triangle. Then quantity demanded can be represented by QTY. Then demanded can be represented by DD. Then you divide by percentage, change, then price is just P. Then you multiply by 100/100%. Now, looking at this, this is just a short way of rewriting this. So for most of you, you're writing Jamb, and writing all this formula out wastes time. So the best thing you do is you need to have a very short way of writing this formula so that you can what? You can apply the figures you are being given in the question. Now, so since you have this, you can apply this formula straightforward like this. Now, there is also another formula we also call the point formula. That is another fast way you can actually solve for price elasticity of demand. Now, the point formula, for the point formula, we just have change in quantity divided by change in price times P1 divided by Q1. Now, the question is, what then is change in Q? Or Q means quantity, P means price. So what then is the change in Q? And what then is the change in P? And what does P1 signifies? And what does Q1 signifies? Now, this is what they signify. Change in Q simply means the new quantity minus the old quantity. Then, when we come to the change in P also tells us it's P2 minus P1, which is the new price minus the old price. Now, looking at the P1 is the what? The old price. Then my Q1 is also the old quantity. So we can see. Now, so you can apply any of these formulas. You can apply this formula method or you can apply this point formula method. And when you apply them, you must get the same answer. Now, let's move on to how to interpret. Because whatsoever answer you get in this elasticity, you must be able to interpret your final answer. Now, the interpretation, or we can just say types of price elasticities. Number one, we have what you call fairly elastic. Number two, we have fairly inelastic. Number three, we have unitary. Then number four, we have perfectly inelastic. Then number five, we have perfectly elastic. Now, let's take them one by one and just explain how it is. Now, look at this. Fairly elastic. What is fairly elastic? Now, fairly elastic is just explaining how the change in price, when you have a larger proportionate change in your price, and or you can have a lower proportionate change in price. Now, when price is increasing, price can either increase or it can either decrease. So when price increases by a very reasonable, or let's say larger proportion or a larger change, it means the percentage change in quantity demanded will also react very, very speedily. So this is the meaning of what? Fairly elastic. Because it can easily be expanded or be contracted. So the definition is here. For fairly elastic, this is when a change in price leads to a greater change in quantity demanded. So we can see now, when a change in price leads to a greater change or a greater percentage change in quantity demanded. Now, let's move to number two. Now, what is the interpretation of fairly elastic? It's very simple. The interpretation is E greater than 1. So anytime you solve for fairly elastic, the interpretation is given as greater than 1. That is, your elasticity is greater than 1. Now, let's move to number two, which is fairly inelastic. For fairly elastic, this is when a change in price leads to a less proportionate change, in quantity demanded. Now, so what we are saying here is that whenever there is a change in price, the percentage change in quantity demanded will actually reduce. It's a lesser proportionate change. Unlike elastic, a greater proportionate; inelastic, a lesser proportionate change. So therefore, we can actually say elastic and inelastic are opposites, in movement or in reaction. So we can say our elasticity here. So if here is greater than 1, definitely here will be less than 1. Now, let's move to unitary. For unitary, elastic or unitary elasticity, this is when a change in price Now, this is when the change in price leads to an equal change in quantity demanded. What this is trying to tell us is that a change in price leads to an equal change in quantity demanded. That is, the percentage change in price, we can say, let's say if there is 50% percentage change in price, there will also be the same change in what? In quantity demanded. So 50%, 50% change. You can see that? So what is our interpretation? Definitely our interpretation here will be equal to 1. From the word unitary, unit stands for the word 1. So therefore, when we say unitary, we are just saying the interpretation is E equals to 1. Now let's move to perfectly inelastic. For perfectly inelastic, now perfectly inelastic is a very special type of price elasticity. And why is it special? It's special because it can also be called zero elasticity. We can also call it zero elasticity. Now, this is now, this is when a change in price leads to no change at all in quantity demanded. You can see how funny this is. Now, it means that whatever price or anyhow a supplier can change his or her price, the thing is the percentage change in quantity demanded has no change at all. So the price of a commodity can increase and increase and increase and increase. Still yet, the people demanding will still remain the same. Demand is not shifting to the left, it's not shifting to the right, it is still the same. So that is what this thing means. This is when the change in price leads to no change in quantity demanded. So that is why our interpretation is E equals 0. E equals 0. Now, for the last one, which is perfectly elastic, now, perfectly elastic is actually what we actually practicalize that every day. We actually practicalize all these things every day. But perfectly elastic is practical example is where you want to buy a particular thing in the market and you observe that the price, maybe you bought it last week for, let's say, 10 naira, and you went to the market and you observe there is a change in price, let's say 2%. Maybe the commodity is now being sold for 12 naira. Now, the reaction of individual to that price change will be that the quantity demand will shift to the extent that it will be very difficult to bring back demand or to control demand back to buy that product. So what they are trying to tell us is that a small change in price, even at no change at all, demand can change at any time. Demand can change at any time, whether there is change or no change. Now, if there is no change and demand is is moving up and is moving down, what do you think will happen if there is a small change? It means demand can even move far, far, far from buying that commodity. So this is when a little change or no change in price allows for a greater change in quantity demanded. So we can see now, when you have a small change or a small change, or sometimes no change at all. So now, if there is a little change or no change at all in price, but demand is changing by a greater percentage. Now, this is what we refer to as perfectly elastic. Now, your interpretation is E equals infinity. E equals infinity. Now, how do you get infinity? It's very simple. Now, I'm sure you might have calculators with you. Just take your calculator and punch in 1 divided by 0. Now, if you do that, what you'll be getting is math error, right? Now, that math error actually is telling you that that number cannot be what? Be defined. So since it cannot be defined, you can call it what? Undefined. So whatever number that is on, or whatever answer that is undefined, it means it is what? Infinity. So any numbers that you try to, anything you try to punch into your calculator and you are getting undefined, what it means is that it is infinity. It is called infinity. So you can actually get them by saying, let's say 1 divided by 0. But when you punch in 0 divided by 1, your answer is 0. But when you punch in 1 divided by 0, the answer is what? Infinity. So that's how you get that. So let's move into an example. So we can apply all these interpretations. Example 1. Let's say we have a table or a schedule. This is our price in Naira. And this is our quantity demanded. Let's see, we have here to be price of 10 Naira, quantity demanded is 50. Price of 20 Naira, quantity demanded is 35. And we've been asked, calculate the price elasticity of demand and interpret your answer. Now, so how do we solve this? Now, we are going to be solving this question using the normal formula method, and we are also going to solve it using the point formula method. So you can see how you can arrive at the same answer. Now, solution. So using the formula method, which is price elasticity of demand equals percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. Now, since we are saying percentage change in quantity demanded and we are saying percentage change in price, so what we need to know is we need to ascertain our percentage change in quantity demanded, percentage change in quantity demanded. Definitely it will be the new quantity minus the old quantity divided by the old quantity. Okay? Now, since you are doing that for percentage change in quantity demanded, we also need to do the same thing for percentage change in price. So we come here, we say percentage change in price. So it will also be what? New price minus old price divided by old price. So since we have this, so don't forget your times 100/1%. Okay, now, looking at this, the thing is, take a look at your price here. This is 10 Naira. This is 20 Naira. The quantity, 50 and 35. Now, what is our new price? What is our old price? Very simple. So it means that this should be, now we can use P1 for old and P2 for new, okay? So we can just say here, since we are using our formula method, let's just use, this will be old price, that is old P. Then we can call this one new P. We can call this one old quantity. We can call this one new quantity. So we can just impute and then solve. So write with me to this side. So for the percentage change in quantity demand,